This is Euronews Tonight. Here are your top stories. Italy ponders a new prime minister as Mario Draghi resigns after trying and failing to save his coalition government. For the first time in 11 years, the European Central Bank raises rates all in a bid to battle inflation. Back on for now, Russian gas flows through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline to Europe once again, albeit at a reduced level.
And here in the Cube, we'll take a closer look at false claims that Ukrainian refugees have blocked a major road in Italy.
I'm Helena Humphrey. It is good to have you with us. Well, Italy's President Sergio Mattarella has announced that he will dissolve Parliament, triggering early elections. That's after Prime Minister Mario Draghi resigned earlier today. Now, following weeks of turmoil, Draghi's government imploded on Wednesday, with some members of his coalition refusing to back him in a confidence vote. The former banker took office 17 months ago with a mandate to help the country recover after the COVID pandemic. His pro-EU stance and staunch support of Ukraine's war effort against Russia led to divisions within his coalition and towards its ultimate downfall. Well, in Rome for us and across all of the latest developments is our correspondent, Giorgia Orlandi. Giorgia, where are we in this process? Because Draghi's resigned. This time, President Mattarella accepted his resignation. So what happens next?
Hi, Elena. Well, already this morning, President Mattarella's office issued a statement confirming that Draghi reiterated his resignation and saying that the government will stay on to manage current affairs. In other words, the current government will stay on to approve the few remaining key measures that have yet to be approved. As confirmed by President Mattarella, as you mentioned there, by dissolving Parliament now, under the current legislation, 70 days have to pass between the moment Parliament is being dissolved and the next general election, which clearly means that those elections are very likely to happen on the 25th of September. Now, there's been a debate over this, whether or not this election could take place either on the 2nd of October or much earlier. And it seems that Mattarella decided that these elections should take place earlier. And that's because Italy's future government, by doing so, will be able to approve the budget bill. We said that yesterday that clearly that has to be approved by and within a certain deadline. Helena?
All right, so snap elections potentially towards the end of September then. Any names out there already as to who could step into Draghi's shoes?
Well, recent polls suggest that Italy's next prime minister could be from the centre-right bloc. And those polls gave Italy's Brothers of Italy, which is actually one of Italy's main centre-right parties, if not far-right parties, around 23% of the vote, which is quite significant. And in fact, the leader, Giorgia Meloni, well, there have been suggestions that Giorgia Meloni could actually become Italy's next prime minister. We said also, we commented on the fact that yesterday's debate actually showed how political parties have already embarked on what now seems to be a political campaign. And also that explains why the centre-right bloc has been pushing so much for early polls. And that's because one of their intentions clearly was to cash in on their current popularity. But also let's remind ourselves that Italy's alignment under a new government, under, let's say, a centre-right government would be much different, especially when it comes to relations with Europe, relations with other international partners. And clearly this could become a little bit of a game changer when it comes to having to deal with the war in Ukraine or the energy crisis. Helena?
Absolutely a key point there. Giorgia Orlandi in Rome. Georgia, thanks very much. Well, to talk now more about the European reaction to Mario Draghi's departure, we can bring in our correspondent, Maeve McMahon, in Brussels. Maeve, how is the news going down across Europe?
Good evening, Helena. Well, here in Brussels, they're celebrating the Belgian national holiday, but you can be sure that those working for the EU institutions will not be celebrating tonight or enjoying those fireworks, because the news is going down like a ton of bricks here in the EU institutions and, of course, across the continent among those in the European political sphere. Because Mario Draghi, well, he was seen as a bit of a superhero among the European political elite. He was, of course, the man who back in 2012 said those famous words that he would do whatever it takes to preserve the euro, the common European currency. He's seen then as a very stable man, as a man who oozes credibility, and he was the one pushing ahead with reforms that Italy needs to push ahead with in order to cash in from the EU's post-recovery fund. So you can imagine a sense of loss really in Europe, among the European political sphere today. We heard from Paolo Gentiloni, that's the EU Commissioner for Italy in charge of the economy, saying that this could bring about chaos over the next couple of months in Italy itself and create a backlash against the country. We saw Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was a great Italian statesman who had great trustworthiness, because of course Europe's heading for a tricky, difficult winter, and it really needs stability right now, not instability, with all the big challenges it faces. So all this uncertainty will not come as good news at all here for the EU capital, for Brussels.
Absolutely, as you say, Maeve, a very difficult time indeed. Maeve McMahon there reporting on the news going down, quote, like a ton of bricks. Well, for the first time in 11 years, the European Central Bank is raising its interest rates as Russia's war in Ukraine continues to rock the Eurozone economy. The bank's governing council decided to hike up 3 benchmark deposit rates by 50 basis points after 8 years of negative interest rates. Now, the move follows the global push to combat soaring inflation. Christine Lagarde says that the central bank will also provide extra help to the bloc's more indebted nations with a new euro bond purchasing scheme to cap the rise in borrowing costs.
Today, in line with our strong commitment to our price stability mandate, the Governing Council took further key steps to make sure that inflation returns to our 2% target over the medium term. We decided to raise the 3 key ECB interest rates by 50 basis points and approved the transmission protection instrument that I will refer to as TPI.
Russia has resumed gas supplies to Europe via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, albeit at a significantly reduced level, as experts say that a winter energy crisis remains inevitable. German authorities said that 40% of usual levels were expected to arrive today. Berlin had been concerned that scheduled maintenance work on the pipeline could signal the end of gas supplies altogether, but the announcement has failed to alleviate fears among experts that Europe won't be heading towards an energy crisis later this year. Brussels and Berlin accuse Moscow of squeezing gas flows in retaliation for Western sanctions. Well, in the face of what it calls Russian blackmail, the European Union has faced backlash over its proposals to address energy security on the continent. Brussels has called on member states to cut back gas usage by 15% to shore up the bloc's winter gas stores. But the move has triggered stern opposition from several EU countries. Madrid saying that the plan doesn't account for less dependent states, while Lisbon reports that it's been having to increase gas usage due to drought problems in the country. A vote to approve the proposal will be held next Tuesday. For more analysis on what all of this means, we can bring in Simone Tagliapietra now. He is an energy policy expert at the Bruegel think tank. Good to have you with us. Welcome to the programme. So the gas is back on for now. This isn't crisis averted, though, is it?
Well, I think we should not sit back and relax our flight because Nord Stream 1 has been reopened. I think Russia so far has been playing a very strategic game. For Russia, it makes more strategic sense to send low volumes of gas rather than a full cutoff, because a full cutoff can really catalyze action of European governments to cut demand and to make Europe more resilient. So they hope we now sort of do some muggling through, not reducing gas demand, and maybe cut the gas in the winter when we are more vulnerable. So we need to stick to our plans. We need to reduce our gas demand because an interruption can happen at any time.
So if I understand your message correctly, you're saying to European member states, this is a trap, don't fall for it.
I think that over the last weeks, we have seen Russia cutting the gas supplies by 2/3 to Europe and making a geopolitical use of these gas supplies. So we can certainly not trust Russia to continue to send these remaining 1/3 of the supplies. We should get ready for a scenario which now is likely of a full interruption. And the only way to get prepared for Europe now is to reduce demand, because we have done whatever it was possible to be done on the supply side. We have attracted a lot of LNG, liquefied natural gas, namely from the United States, to rebalance the lower volumes of Russian gas. Now the eventual gap will have to be filled by the reducing demand. That's what we need to do now.
But will Brussels actually do that? Because, I mean, yesterday it called on member states to reduce gas use by 15%. Less than 24 hours later, we heard from Spain, we heard from Portugal saying they'd reject that. So, you know, what needs to happen here?
Well, of course, while introducing these European targets, you always have some countries that want to claim they are special and want to claim they need a different treatment. But here, I think we need to understand that reducing demand by 15% is something that would allow everybody and Europe overall to get a more efficient management of this crisis. We would be better off altogether if we are to go down this pathway indicated by the European Commission. And I think what can be negotiated possibly is a compensation for those countries that are less dependent on Russian gas and can provide solidarity to other European countries that are more vulnerable. EU solidarity ensured by a compensation mechanism can be the way to go.
I certainly understand the logic in that proposal, but the fact of the matter is we've got Hungary's foreign minister in Moscow today saying that he wants to buy more Russian gas for Hungary. So, I mean, at the end of the day, is this not the moment where European unity essentially crumbles in this war?
Well, this is, I think, the strategy from the very first day by Russia. Russia wants to weaponize energy in order to divide and rule. And I think it will be fooled by the European Union, by the European countries, to let the Russian strategy prevail. If we fragment ourselves, if we go in different directions, Russia will prevail, they will weaken our domestic politics, and as a result, they will weaken our foreign policy stance in support of Ukraine and against the Russian aggression. So I think Europe should not go down this way, and maintaining the unity is important, even if we need to find solutions to guarantee that everybody is on board, like in the case of Hungary.
The message there from Simone Tagliapietra, an energy policy expert at Bruegel think tank. Great to have you with us. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. At least 2 people have been killed and 19 others injured after Russian forces shelled a market in the northeastern city of Harkief. The regional governor says that a child is among the dead, while 4 people are in a critical condition. As Moscow moves to capture territory in the south of the country, the British Ministry of Defence says it'll send more anti-tank weapons in the coming weeks to repel the invasion. Meanwhile, US intelligence says that up to 15,000 Russian troops have been killed since the war began. And as the war in Ukraine continues, so too does disinformation about the conflict. A recent misleading post claims that Italians are angry at Ukrainian refugees for protesting and blocking a busy road near Rome. Sophia in the Cube has been investigating.
Yes, Helena. Misinformation about Ukrainian refugees continues to spread online. This pro-Kremlin Telegram channel shared this video last week. In it, we can see angry drivers pulling yellow-vested protesters off the road. And this caption in Russian claims, and I quote, that Italian citizens are sick and tired of the stupid protest actions organized by Ukrainian refugees. So as you can see, this post was viewed thousands of times, and this Telegram channel has over 80,000 members. But this video is in fact misleading. Here in the Cube, we took a few stills from this video, did a reverse image search, and we actually found that this video has appeared multiple times in local Italian media, and it has nothing to do with the Ukraine war or with Ukrainian refugees. So what this actually was a protest organized in June in Rome by Extinction Rebellion, which is an environmental group. And so we also found the original video on Twitter, which also confirmed that this was an environmental protest. And according to Italian media, the protesters blocked this road to call for an end of all fossil fuels and demand that the Italian government start investing in clean energy, for example, in solar or wind power. But this is not the first time that pro-Kremlin channels have actively tried to discredit Ukrainian refugees abroad. This week in The Cube, we debunked false claims that Ukrainian refugees were invited to stay at a former Nazi concentration camp in Germany. So, Helena, disinformation about refugees fleeing the Ukraine war has unfortunately followed them all the way to Western Europe.
All right, Sophia, they're setting the record straight for us. Sophia, thank you. Well, England are through to the semi-finals of the Women's Euro 2022, beating Spain 2-1 on Wednesday night. The hosts needed extra time to come from behind and book their place in the Final Four. The Lionesses will find out their semi-final opponents on Friday. That's when Belgium take on 2020 Olympic finalist Sweden. The tournament has already broken the record for being the most attended Women's Euros to date. Well, for more on this and other top sports stories, I'm joined now by sports reporter Cameron Hill. Cameron, pretty exciting start to the knockout stages of the tournament. The hosts, I mean, I guess you could say they got the job done, but certainly I think it's fair to say that the Spanish side, I mean, they had them on the back foot, really, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. It wasn't the most high-quality encounter yesterday in Brighton, but in terms of excitement, it had it in spades. Host England went into the game considerable favourites, but they struggled to get going, especially in the first half. Just struggled to make connections, make passes. It just didn't seem like it was there for them. Spain, on the other hand, they really had their tails up. They were superb technically, especially in their passing, which Spain are known for anyway, but they just weren't able to pull the trigger. Every time they were in front of goal, just wasn't on target for them. But in the second half, they rectified that. Esther Gonzalez, 10 minutes into the second 45, getting that goal. And from then on, England really started to get back into the game. Their work was now cut out for them. And Ella Toone found that equaliser on 84 minutes, sent it to extra time, England on the front foot, and then that Georgia Stanway goal. Finally found space, midfield causing her all sorts of issues all night. But she put her right boot to the ball, absolutely fired it, and it was a rocket, let me tell you. Those sort of moments make the tournament, and whatever happens in the rest of this tournament now, that goal will live long in the memory. They'll face either Belgium or Olympic silver medalist Sweden in the next round. Yeah, it was certainly a nail-biter. Meanwhile, it looks as though tennis star Novak Djokovic might not be allowed to play at the US Open later this year. Tell us more about that. Yeah, it's to do with his vaccination status. The US policy at the moment is that unvaccinated non-citizens are not allowed into the country. Djokovic is unvaccinated. We remember that whole saga at the start of the year with the Australian Open. He wasn't allowed to compete. And he maintains that he's willing to miss tournaments if it comes to his vaccine status. He's already skipped tour events in the US this year at Indian Wells and Miami. And although 21 Grand Slams, he's one off that record set by Nadal. It might turn his head and maybe he'll push to be at the tournament this year. But we're likely to hear a lot more on this situation, and the tournament gets underway on the 29th of August. All right, that'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Well, Cameron Hill, across all of the latest sports news for you. Cameron, great to have you on set. Thank you. Well, Italy's astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti has become the first European woman to take a walk in space. Cristoforetti headed outside of the International Space Station alongside a Russian cosmonaut. The duo will undertake several tasks, including installing platforms and workstation adapter hardware. They're also deploying 10 nano-satellites designed to collect radio electronics data in a mission which is expected to last up to 7 hours. Now, visitors to Paris will know that the French city is one of Europe's more expensive destinations, but for some, that is about to change. As Europeans buckle under the weight of soaring inflation, the euro's sharp fall against the US dollar is good news for travelling Americans. Charlotte Lamb has the story now.
How about everybody else? Did you enjoy it?
Yes! Summer in Paris is in full swing, and Americans have returned to the French capital in hordes after 2 years of scrapped travel plans and rigorous COVID testing. This time, they're getting more bang for their buck, with the euro almost matching the dollar.
I've been to Europe before, and I could definitely tell the difference. Like, it was way more expensive then, but now it's like the same, so.
This has been glorious because this is our 4th or 5th trip to Europe. And the exchange rates have always been like $1.35, $1.4 to the euro. Now, with them one-to-one, it seems like visiting a local vacation spot in the U.S.
Many travellers are escaping the heat by drinking fine wines, splurging on luxury goods, or treating themselves to lavish accommodation, while others plan a second trip for later in the year. Flights from the US to Paris have increased by 11% compared to the same time in 2019. On average, American tourists, mostly visiting in groups, are spending €400 a day in France.
Well, we leave you now with a no comment from Bogota, where military parades helped Colombia celebrate 212 years of national independence. Thanks for watching Euronews Tonight.
Corea del Sur, luego de la invasión por parte de Corea del Norte, que ayudan a cimentar los sueños de esta nación.
Relaciones amistosas en el marco de